Friends, today I have a fantastic guest named Robert Paylor who's on the podcast. He has a book coming out in May that we are all going to buy called Paralyzed to Powerful. I've got a glimpse at it. It's magical. It is going to change your world. And Robert is one of those keynote speakers that you don't just take the message home, you start living the message. So Robert, thanks so much for showing up today.
Jen, thank you so much. I don't know if the audience can see it, but I'm blushing as red as a tomato from that intro. So really excited to be here today. This will be fun.
Yay! Like a lot of our stories, right? Starts from this tragic moment. Can you take us back to that injury and what went through your mind and how the process and all the things happened?
The day was May 6, 2017. And, with those moments, everyone's kind of got their day and that's mine. And I thought this was going to be the best day of my life. I mean, I wake up, I'm starting as a sophomore for the number one team in the nation. We're going for a national championship, number 31, by the way, with that tournament only being around for about 45 years. So You can look at any team at any level, any sport in America. And I think the only team that had more championships than us was the Harlem Globetrotters. And their games are rigged, so we're doing all right. I'm pretty excited, but I just love this game of rugby. It's kind of this very niche sport in America that not many people have heard about, especially even played. And but I just took this absolute loving to the game, and that was my passion. That was my purpose in life, and I was at the pinnacle of where I could be in this sport at my age level in America, and I knew that. I thanked God every day for it, and was thinking, okay, we're going to go over here. We're going to win this national championship. And that's really going to be a legacy moment for me, because when you win a national champion, you're not just a national champion for that day. You are a national champion for the rest of your life. So this is one of those moments where as an athlete, you just kind of dream about this your entire life. And here it was. And everything was going really well. We were very highly favored to win this game. Our opponent in this day was Arkansas State. We felt really confident going into this game. And it was really early on in this game that I'm competing in a maul, which is when the bigger guys, we group up in a single unit and then we push to advance the ball. Defense's job is to come straight in and stop us from moving forward. Very much a boiler room, like where the big guys thrive. And I was a big guy. I'm 6'5", 245 pounds at the time. I am on this field to move people, just moving bodies that don't want to get out of the way. We're 5 meters out from scoring this thing. I'm like drooling here on this field thinking, let's go, Rob, get this thing in. And then as I'm doing that, the opposing players, they start making these illegal moves, but the referee's not calling anything. So immediately 3 players enter in from the side of the maul, which is an infraction, but the ref's not calling it. And then one player comes in and he binds my head in a headlock. So my chin is kind of pinned down to my chest. Now, normally in rugby, this is an automatic yellow or red card. You do that, you're gone. But the ref's not calling it. And I think really as an athlete in a situation like this, there's only a couple of courses of action that you can really take. And one is you can kind of stand up, throw your arms out to the side and say, hey, ref, what's going on? You going to call this thing? Number 2, you keep moving forward. And that was my decision. I keep my shoulder levels down. My legs are pumping. As I do that, another player chops me down by my legs. I start going down to the ground. That arm lock around my neck continues to improve, so I can't get my head up. And I remember I just closed my eyes. I grit my teeth. I felt this god-awful crunch in my neck. And then it was just poof. Can't move anything. Can't feel anything. I am totally clear and conscious, just as clear and conscious as I am talking to you right now. But I'm totally numb and motionless for about the collarbone down in my body. And my thoughts just went insane.
Oh,
I mean, I'm just thinking like, oh man, am I ever going to be able to play rugby again? Am I ever going to be able to go back to school? Am I ever going to, graduate and have a great career? And, one day I want to be able to meet a girl and get married and we'll start a family. And I start thinking, am I ever going to be able to feed myself ever again? Walk? It was an absolutely torturous moment where it's one of those things where it's like, I am experiencing one of the worst terrors you can experience in any human life. It's like being in a nightmare and there's just no waking up. And I remember my trainers and doctors, they come over, they're saying, Robert, what happened? Can you feel this? Can you move anything? And my answer is just no, nothing. So I get over to the hospital.
Yeah.
And I do some x-rays, do a CT scan. Doctor comes back, very matter of fact. He says, Robert, your injury is bad, really bad. And the reality is you will never walk again. You will never move your hands. And we're going to do our best. So one day you can do something like pick up a piece of pizza and bring it to your face. And if you can do that, you made it. If you can just feed yourself, you beat all the odds. And then my doctor doesn't stop there. He recommends surgery to me, spinal fusion surgery. He explains that the disc in between my C5-6 vertebrae ruptured into my spinal cord. Also had fracturing of the C5 and the C6 vertebrae. So the damage that was done to my spinal cord might only continue to increase unless we perform this emergency spinal fusion surgery. He said it was my best chance at having some stability and just a semblance of recovery, but it was a potentially life-threatening surgery.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting in this hospital bed and I'm thinking, just a few hours earlier, I thought that this was going to be the best day of my life.
Right.
And now I don't even know if this is going to be my last day. And I didn't have a lot of choices, but I knew one thing, and that's that I had to give absolutely everything I can give to get everything I can get out of this injury. I'm 20 years old. I got my entire life ahead of me, and I've never been taught to quit. I have never been taught to give up. I was not going to have any regrets, and I was not just going to be a statistic. I was going to give everything I've got. And I decided to go into the surgery and take that risk. And I remember I said my prayers with my family. And I said goodbye to them. And I got rolled into that operating room. And they put the gas mask over my mouth. And I started counting down from 100. And by the time I get to 98, I'm clocked out. And that concluded May 6th of 2017 for me.
Wow. Wow. I like think of that from so many perspectives. I think of that from the mother perspective. I think of that from my self perspective. I think of that from my child perspective. Yeah. There's just so much there. The fact that you said I was going to give it all I got.
Yeah.
Like from that early on in the injury, that's pretty profound, because I think a lot of people, I would be negotiating, like, why didn't I just die? Like, just let me die. I think that would be my initial call, because I'd be so afraid of how my life would look with that diagnosis. I'd be like, I don't want it. Never mind. Just pull the plug. And you were fighting from the moment you said, you're like, no, this is not my story. I'm breaking the odds. Yeah. That's pretty cool. So you go into surgery on May 6th of 2017. What happens what do they tell you? What's how did the surgery go? What are they thinking is possible after they got in there and saw it with their eyes?
Fortunately, a lot of positives after my surgery. So I'll be completely honest with you. I was hoping that I was going to wake up after the surgery and I would just be like, oh, nice. I can feel my hands, scratch my nose, look on my toes. I'm going to be out of here in a week or a day. And I woke up and I was still totally numb. Okay. Very motionless. So I'm like, okay, this wasn't just a bad dream. This is real. But then my doctor comes in and kind of gives me a rundown of how things went. They said it was extremely successful. They did a great job with the surgery, a lot of room for growth and development. And my spinal cord gave me some relief there. That it was going to be a long road ahead, but that I did have some things going for me. One is that I was young. My nervous system is still developing. So I had that, but then that athletic background was good too, that my body would be able to handle the stress that was coming this way. But then just that mental fortitude, like I was talking about just a second ago, that kind of never quit mindset, constant growth mindset, that was going to help me. So I started there, but then, I got hungry, physically hungry. It's time to eat. And, I remember, I don't know, I was trying to eat, some yogurt or something soft. I sit there like trying to eat it and I just start kind of choking on it. Like I couldn't get it down. My diaphragm was mostly paralyzed. I could barely breathe, let alone like put out a good forceful cough. So I just kind of start choking on it. And, there's nothing I can do. People kind of looking with concerned faces until my nurse starts really like slamming down on my chest to kind of clear my windpipe. And I'm thinking, oh boy, what a helpless feeling to where you can't breathe. And so that wasn't great. It took me 3 more days of not successfully being able to swallow water or food that we realized I was going to need to address this pretty quickly, or my body would just really deteriorate. We had to put a feeding tube up my nose and down in my stomach. I mean, this thing was literally like a yard long. going up there, and it was crazy, but I had to eat.
Yeah.
And, with my inability to really breathe or clear my lungs, I contracted pneumonia, which
Of
is
course.
dangerous for anybody, right? But was particularly dangerous for me because of my breathing difficulties. And we had my mom, my nurses, my doctors just slamming down on my chest, doing everything we could do to move this stuff out of my lungs. I had breathing treatments every 3 hours, every 2 hours. My body would need to be rotated so I didn't get a sore. Every 1 hour, my vital signs would get checked. And they weren't like working like clockwork. I mean, this hospital door is just a revolving door of people coming in. And I just begged for like 20 minutes to sleep here or there. But it became very clear that if I did not accept the tube going up my nose for 3 days down to my stomach, if I didn't accept these breathing treatments that were at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., doesn't matter, filling up a jar full of just mucus and horrible things coming out of my lungs, that I was going to die. It was do or die. And my doctors told me that it was very possible that I might not survive this. And I had to continue to give everything that I had. I stayed on that path, but it really felt like death was with me in that room, just waiting for me to quit. Luckily, I had a lot of support. I mean, my mom, she slept on a chair by my bedside every single night for 2 months. She was sleeping there in a chair.
Aw.
And, someone I could talk to.
Yeah.
And she scratched my nose when it itched, and she wiped my tears when I cried. And I know I just would not have survived that period if it weren't for my mom. And it took a toll on my body. I lost 60 pounds in 1 month.
Wow.
But I kept moving forward, and I eventually was able to get out of that kind of immediate acute part of where I really had to fight for my life.
And what is that? Like, what do you think that balance is of accepting reality, but defying odds? Because there's some like you said, the doctors are, if we don't do this, you could die. So it's that reality. And then it's that I have to keep pushing. Were you ever exhausted from just saying like, okay, fine, I give up? Or did you, I would imagine having your mom sitting next to you or other people around you, you're like, anytime you felt like, oh my God, this is exhausting, then you see her and you're like, I can't do this to my mom. I got to keep going, right? Or at some level. I know when I've been in terrible spots on the mountain, which is nothing the same, but we've had some near-death experiences out there. And when you're in those spots, like, I'm like, this can't be the end of my story. I have 7 kids at home. Like, I am coming home. And just knowing they were home, I'm confident changed the reality of some of those experiences.
I had just something I was committed to, really committed to. And, when you lose your ability to walk or move your body, you want nothing more than to walk. I mean, it's a really indescribable thing. Just that appetite to regain that and achieve that. For me, it wasn't just simply being able to walk. My body was the driver of so much of the meaning and purpose in my life. I was a very physical person, and then was stripped away from me in an instant. And I had a lot of time to think when I was in that period of the hospital, because I was completely bedridden. There was really no rehab for me to be able to do outside of my hospital. It was just me getting healthy again. And especially in the nighttime when there wasn't a lot of things going on, visitors coming over, it was just me and my thoughts and my situation. Yeah. I spent a lot of time thinking about my vision, like what I want my life to look like. And I would think about, going back to my house and being able to walk around and man, what would that feel like, just to be able to pick up that box of cereal that's up on the top of the pantry again. And little things like that. What would it be like to be able to just stand up from my couch, roll up out of bed, and slip my 2 feet, in my socks or my slippers? And I would just think about these little moments really tangibly. And it just built this hunger, this appetite. And so I'd keep it there. And I kind of take it one step before that. Okay, well, before that, I'm going to be able to stand up off the ground. And so I'd think about that. And way before that, I'm going to have that moment where I get into those parallel bars that you'll see in a rehab setting.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be in my wheelchair. I'm going to put my hands on those 2 bars. I'm going to lean my chest forward, and I'm going to drive my heels into the floor, and I'm going to stand up. And then maybe I'm going to take a few steps too. And I think about just what would that feel like to just grit in my teeth, giving everything I have to move my foot just a few inches in front of the other. And I'm sitting here, at midnight, kind of lights are off and everything. I'm just in tears, crying about thinking about what I would give just for the chance to be able to walk a few steps. And it built just like such a strong hunger within me. And then I kind of broke it all the way down to where that current reality, which I had to be really in tune with, that if I was going to achieve any of that, I couldn't start anywhere further than I was right now. That when someone came in at 3 a.m. and they're like, we have to start pumping on your lungs right now, Robert, to get you to, be able to get this pneumonia out of you. There was no question. If I want that, I've got to do this. And there was one time when I denied a breathing treatment. There was one time I was just exhausted. I'm like, please just give me like an hour. And they did. And it ended up being the worst breathing treatment I had after that. And they're like, Robert, if you don't go through this, your lungs are going to collapse. I mean, it could get really deadly for you. And that was kind of the only warning I needed to be like, I can't let up for a second. If there was ever a time for me to really knuckle down and lock in right now, this is it. So I did it. But it was constantly fueled by that vision to get back what I had lost, that I just had such a huge appetite to regain that.
A lot of people let diversity define them, like this whole adversity piece for you, and you just did not. What do you suggest to somebody that's wrestling with that?
That adversity can kind of define you, but in a good way. So I'd kind of I'd twist it around here, because my challenges are so visible. Like, I can't see it on the screen right now. But, I'm in a wheelchair, and it's not just a prop for me. Like, I have to use this to get throughout my day. And people just look at me and they can see that I go through a lot every day. So, if people are kind of thinking like, oh, do you remember Robert? And maybe they don't, if they're kind of feeding for some of those kind of like identifiable traits, they're probably going to say the guy in the wheelchair. Like, so in a lot of ways, this adversity does define me. I am paralyzed. I know that, and I own that. But I don't fit the mold of what I think most people would think when they think of a paralyzed person. I think they would envision someone who's, kind of sitting down, alone, just, without, without meaning, and kind of wishing they had something that they didn't. And I think that's what a lot of people who maybe aren't exposed to a lot of inspiring folks in situations like this might conjure up in their mind. But paralysis comes in many forms, mental and emotional and spiritual. And I've really been able to use this incredible adversity to benefit others, to talk about this challenge that I've been through as a source of inspiration for other folks, but really lay into those principles that have helped me in overcoming this, that it can help them through what's paralyzing them in their lives. So it's kind of funny, like in trying to make sure that this adversity didn't define me, it defined me in such a different way. And I'm so grateful for that. And I wouldn't even wish it away. Like, do I wish I could walk again? Heck yeah. I work at that every single day, and I will never give up as long as I live. But do I wish that this never happened? I can't say that, because it's given me so much meaning, so much purpose in my life. It's that road that got me where I am today. And if those are the twists and turns I had to take to get here, I'd do it again, because I'm proud of who I am today. And that adversity got me there.
Can you put one foot in front of the other at all, stepwise, with that unaided at this point, or not?
Yeah, I can. So let me give you the cliff notes on how things went after that hospital.
Because I kind of feel like I read somewhere that you got to walk across the stage for high school graduation. So that was 2 years after the accident.
Yeah, for graduating from Cal. So I make it through that period. I get my way over to Denver, Colorado, a place called Craig Hospital. Amazing place. And my doctors over there were awesome. And I remember my first meeting, they said, Robert, what happened to you is terrible, but we don't know where you're going to progress from here. You might walk out of these doors one day, and you very well might not. But the one thing we're going to guarantee you is we will give you everything that modern science and medicine has to optimize your recovery. You've got the full strength and support of this team. And they just gave me that little glimmer of hope. And it's amazing how much hope can do for our lives. A really strong support system. And we went after it. I mean, it was 8 to 9 hours of really intense rehab a day. This is the hardest I've ever worked at something in my life. I'm trying to get something that can't move to move. And that's about 80% of my body. Yeah. But in the coming months, I showed up to the hospital and I couldn't move anything. And then I could twitch a finger, twitch a toe. And it was about a year later, it was April 13th of 2018, that I was able to get up on my feet into my walker. I walked out of the hospital doors, and I got back to Cal over in the Haas School of Business. And then it was in August of 2021 that I stood up on my own 2 feet in the Greek Theater at UC Berkeley. And I grabbed that diploma and I put it up in the air as high as I could. And gosh, 15,000 people were just screaming their butts off. And it's just such a huge moment. But it is exactly 2,841 days since my injury. And I keep track of those days very intentionally, because this journey is not over. And while I've had a lot of physical success throughout all this, I still push for more. And I don't take any one of those days for granted. And that same mindset that I had on day one is the same that I have now 7.5 years later, that I will keep pushing at this and not take any of these abilities that I have for granted. I'm going to keep going. So it's just been an amazing journey. Yeah, I can walk 400 yards in my walker now. It's just amazing.
Yeah. And now we've been talking about the physical aspect of this injury, but it's really a metaphor for all aspects in our lives, right? And that's what you talk about and help people get from that paralyzed point, be that emotional, like mental, spiritual, physical even, and turning that into power. If somebody has this paralysis, what's like one thing that they can do to start gaining ground on it and having them come out ahead?
Yeah, it is amazing just how many things paralyze us. And I mean, some things that immediately come up at the top of my head would be like fear, fear of failure, the fear of the unknown, fear that I might not reach my potential one day, or I might let someone down who I love. I think that's a really strong form of paralysis. Rejection, or that lack of motivation, or just kind of lack of meaning and purpose in one's life. These are things that I find a lot. So it's amazing how you look around and you can kind of think everybody's just got it together, but everybody has a struggle that they're going through. And the number one thing that I keep going back to in my life, and I really recommend that others do, is really start practicing perspective in their lives and looking outside of themselves for that source of inspiration, but really particularly perspective, because I have a lot of down moments. And there's a lot of times when I look around and I see a lot of seemingly able-bodied people who are walking, they're doing something I've worked really hard to achieve, and I'm just not there yet. And I'll need to pick me up. So I'll get on my phone, and I'm not looking up videos of puppies and rainbows. No, I mean, I'll look up cancer patients, complete quadriplegics, veterans who come back from war without limbs. I mean, people who are in terrible situations, something that nobody should ever have to go through. But I look at them, explain how they make their lives happen every day, a lot of times with a smile on their face. Right. I just think, remind me not to complain about anything ever again, because I know if these people were in my situation, they wouldn't be upset when they have to get up out of bed early in the morning. They'd be excited that they just got to get up out of bed. Right. Or they wouldn't be upset when they have to go to work. They'd be excited that they get to go to work. They get to contribute to something, see growth in their life. And I encapsulate all this under a saying that I run in my head like all the time when that adversity strikes me. And I really hope that other people use it too. And that saying is, compared to what? So I'll be like, man, I'm so tired, but compared to what? Or there's a lot that I'm going through right now. I'm stressed. I'm overwhelmed, but compared to what? There's a lot that I can do. There's a lot that I do have. Now, that statement is not meant to dismiss our challenges. I think it's really unhealthy if we just dismiss our challenges, because if you do that, it just ignores it. The challenge will never go away. What that challenge is meant to do is just put those challenges into perspective. It helps us realize that what we go through is overcomable. There's so much that we can achieve. So identify what paralyzes you. And let me tell you, whatever it is that you're dealing with, this is the person who's listening to this right now, it's significant. I know that. We've all been there. But take some time to look outside yourself, seek those sources of perspective. So when you ask yourself that question, compared to what, you can put those things into perspective. You can keep moving forward. Oh, like that is the best line ever. Compared to what? And I actually have used it myself, right? Because I'm on the mountain of Mount Everest climbing, and I paid
to put myself in this situation, right? Like I paid a lot of money to put myself in this situation. And you sit there and you think like, what is wrong with me? Like, why didn't I go to the beach? Like that was an option. Like why did I pick, right? Like these things come to you. And then like you sit there and you use that word, like compared to what you're like, but I'm alive.
Yeah.
And I get to like, I promise you our world would be a different world if everybody got to see what the world looked like from the top of Mount Everest, right? I mean, it's just this magical, awe-inspiring, you can't put it into words moment that leaks out of your eyeballs and like fills your heart so much that people that are 7,000 miles away feel like they're next to you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just this like, this thing, you just pulse with the world and you're just one with everything. And it just like, it changes the game, right? And it's those little words along the path that change the journey and it changes the perspective. And it's like, compared to what? Like, yes, I paid to get here. And yes, this is a miserable moment. And yes, it will pass. And yes, who I became in this pursuit was worth every penny.
Yeah.
Right. But like, it's human to have the emotion and to have the experience, and how you become superhuman is by taking that moment and saying, no, I'm not going to feel that way. I'm going to continue and I'm going to be bigger than this pain or this moment or this frustration. And if I can do it, then you can do it. And we're just this collective that as we ping pong off of each other, so much more becomes possible.
Totally. And just keeping in mind, like how much others would give to be in those situations. I mean, there's millions of people in this world who would rather be in our situation than their own right now. And I just can't ever forget that. And I think back to myself, like in that hospital bed, getting tubes up my nose and, my lungs pumped down on. It's like what I would have given to be able to give a full effort to something right now. And whenever I'm up walking and, it's one of those tough workouts and I'm just find myself complaining, I can't tell you how often I like just stop and think like old Robert Paylor would have slapped me across the face right now for complaining to walk. I think that's just like such an important perspective. I'll always keep in our lives to just keep looking outside of ourselves, because there's just so many people who would love to be in our situation. So let's use it for good.
So how do you manage like the ongoing struggles and like the commitment to this while running a normal life, as normal as it can be for you?
The biggest thing is having a really strong commitment. It's just being able to answer those why questions that we all get every single day. Why get up out of bed early in the morning? Why log on to my computer? Why can I push through my lunch break when I really know I need to? All those kind of things. Why work out? Why do any of this? And the strongest thing that gets me answering those questions is a real selfless commitment to others. And I remember when it started, because when I first got hurt, I just wanted to walk and get better for myself. It was a selfish desire that motivated me. And the word selfish kind of has a negative connotation, but I don't think my motivations were negative. I mean, believe me, I still do want to walk for my own ability to just move around. I don't think that's a bad thing. But the predominant commitment really changed about 5 days into my injury. And to give a little context, I used to coach youth rugby camps when I was playing rugby at Cal. I'd come back to Sacramento where I live and go to my high school. And the age range was like 10 to 14 years old. And there was this one camper there whose name was Talon. And Talon was one of the smaller kids on the field, but he just played with heart. He's like a Rudy type, and everyone kind of roots for someone like that. And I remember I would give him the ball and pick him up so he could go score. Like, imagine me, 6'5", D1 athlete, just like bobbing and weaving in between 10-year-olds. Like, I'm putting a stiff arm on little Jimmy so Talon could have his moment. And we shared this real bond. And it was around the time of my injury, that 5 days later period, that my high school is hosting a prayer service for me. And they're praying for my healing and praying for my strength. And it was on this day that my dad shows me a picture on his phone. It's someone who I don't recognize, but he's obviously fighting for his life. And his hair is white and thin, and his body's just skin and bones. The skin's very pale. And my dad tells me this kid is Talon, a kid at camp. And he was fighting stage 4 cancer. And it was on this post that his mom wrote a caption, and it read along the lines of, Talon wanted so badly to be at the prayer service to pray for Robert today, but he had to be in the hospital undergoing chemotherapy. And he's wearing his Jesuit rugby shirt that the team gifted him in his first round of chemo. And it's his goal that when he beats his cancer, he wants to go play rugby. And Robert inspired him to do that. And the message goes on further, and it finishes with a sentence that's just seared into my soul. And it changed everything for me. And it said, stay strong and keep smiling, Robert. Your strength helps Talon stay strong too.
Oh,
Tears just poured out of my face because I
1,000%.
realized in that moment that overcoming this injury is not about me.
Yeah.
It's about him.
Right.
It's about all those people who are inspired when I choose to fight another day.
Oh, this is so good. So when you talk on stage, right, what is the one message that you hope everybody leaves with?
I got to say 3 things because we've already touched on 2.
Give me 3. I'm here for it.
So it's like, you got to make that commitment in your life, you know, to others and with others too. You need to welcome others into that commitment that you've made for a support system. You got to practice perspective and all those forms that it takes, looking at stories outside yourself, celebrating those little victories in your life, looking at those things that you've overcome to realize that resilience and fortitude that you've already accessed and have within you. But then you got to spend some time to be in control of your mindset. And I want people to really just realize how important it is to focus on what you can control in your life. And I always try to be really vulnerable about this, because this is the most difficult thing that I encountered. And it wasn't so much just learning how to focus on controlling, how much effort I can put into a day, but just how this injury happened to me. Because what happened to me was entirely illegal.
Yeah. There's a lot of people you could place blame on, from referees to other humans.
Yeah. And the one that it really came back to was the person who had his arm locked around my neck. And I remember just sitting in that hospital bed, breathing treatments, not sleeping, not eating, thinking about how everything I'm going through is because of another person. I just remember the hate I had in my heart about that, and just the anger I had towards this person. And this guy's never reached out to me. And 7.5 years later, he's never said he's sorry. But I forgive him whether he's sorry or not, because I realized the more hate I gave to this person, the more power I gave to him and the less power I had for myself. And it wasn't until I made that very deliberate decision to forgive him that I could finally start being freed from all this animosity. And I'll be honest, it wasn't just some flip of the switch thing. Like I said, I forgave him.
Not. Right.
Yeah, and then I just had
way.
peace in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, people would ask me, Robert, what do you think about this guy? And what's your take? And I would say I forgive him and I wish him well. But deep within me, there was still a lot of animosity within. It was kind of a fake it till you make it kind of situation. But there was something to it that as time went on and I stayed on that path of forgiveness, and if I got off of it, I tried to hop right back on. And I'd say I forgive him and I wish him well. Wow. It's just that as days added up into weeks and months, I could feel that hatred slowly going down, and that kind of fire of rage just sort of burning itself out because I wasn't putting fuel on that fire, to where eventually it got to the point where it's like, oh, wow, I don't even think about this guy. And I'm not looking behind me. I'm looking forward, because that's where I'm going. And I could really feel that internal forgiveness within me. So I think it's just really important for all of us to realize that forgiveness is not about just removing those negative attachments from the person who did wrong. It's about removing that animosity from the person who was wronged. It's very much for ourselves that we need to stay on that path of forgiveness. I think it's just one of those situations that just always applies. It's always the right answer to forgive others, to forgive yourself, to let go of those uncontrollable situations in your life. And it's not until you do that you can really be in control of your mindset and then access that positivity that's needed to keep moving forward. Let me tell you, it's difficult. It's not easy, but it's in those situations where it's always the most worth it. And I know it really was for me.
Yeah. And I love how you're letting everybody know who's listening, it's not a one and done, right? Yeah. It is imposter syndrome for the beginning, because you want to feel it and it's the right thing, but you're just not there, but it gets you closer. Mm-hmm. And by continuing to do it and continuing to work on that, and you're right, as long as you hold on to it, you're carrying it with you into your future. And the only way to really let it go is to come to peace with it and forgive it for your sake, not for their sake.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you could go back in time and talk to yourself right before the injury, what would you have said?
I think it would have to be to just be like grateful for every single day that's to come.
Okay.
And in the beginning of it, that would have been tough. I mean, that
Oh.
was tough. And I remember my faith is really important to me. It always has been, still is. And my kind of nightly prayer routine is to always start by saying, God, thank you for this day. And really feeling it and really meaning it. And I remember sitting in that hospital doing my nightly prayers. It was so hard to say that. And I think there was a few days that I missed, and I just couldn't bring myself to say thank you for this day. And if I could talk to myself, that would be the biggest thing, is to just be grateful for every day that comes your way. Because life is such a gift. It's fragile. It can change so quickly, but it's a gift. And in all those dark moments I had, I still had so much light around me from the people who love me, the hope that I had in the future, these, wonderful days that I live in my life right now. Those were there waiting for me. And, but I just had to keep moving forward through that darkness. But throughout all of that, just being able to maintain that gratitude is critically important.
Such a good answer. God, thank you for this day. Yeah.
Amen.
So powerful. Last one. What's a quote, mantra, or philosophy that keeps you grounded and moving forward?
If I didn't say compared to what earlier, I would say that again. Here's another simple one that really keeps me moving forward in terms of that perspective. And it's very simple as well. It's just, I've done harder things. I tell myself that a lot, that, and especially have to use it in the little things in life, when it's you're out and about and your phone runs out of battery, you forgot your charger at home, and you're just upset about that little situation, or, the car engine, failure, your light comes on. You're like, oh my gosh, I have so much going on. I can't even imagine trying to get my car over to the dealership right now to look at this thing. Those little things that come by, just to be able to just repeat that mantra in my head of, hold on, Robert, I've done harder things. I've done harder things. That really helps me a lot. And I have to draw upon that a lot, especially just for the little things. But it apply to the big things too. I mean, we've all had to overcome significant adversity in our lives, and we should be able to draw upon that. And I think that's a good little reminder there that we can give ourselves when we're feeling that negativity kind of creeping its way into our mindset, just to remember that we've overcome great hardships in our life, and it's made us stronger to overcome what we have today.
Friends, we had an amazing episode. I can't believe how empowering Robert is. The few things that I definitely want you to take from this episode today is, compared to what? When life gets hard, compared to what? And put that in perspective and keep going. And then, I've done harder things before. Isn't that true? We've done harder things before. So when we're frustrated in these little moments, don't let those moments steal your day. Take control. You've done harder things before. And God, thank you for this day. That is a lot easier to say some days than others. But truly, being alive here on this planet, living this life that we get to live, God, thank you for this day. Oh, this episode's one of my favorites. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, come back for more, check out some of the episodes, give me advice for different people you want me to interview. This is my favorite part of my job. I appreciate all of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.